if my brother didn't pass away, I wouldn't be here today living the life that I'm living now.
You're listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers.
Presented by CMH Heli Skiing and Peak Performance.
Are you ready for an unforgettable ski experience that takes care of everything? Well, visit one of Club Med's mountain resorts and experience the thrill of the slopes without having to worry about a thing. With their all-inclusive packages, you'll get your lift passes, you'll get lessons, delicious meals, exciting après activities, even childcare for the kids. All that's included in the price so you can focus on what matters most, carving perfect turns and enjoying breathtaking views. Visit www.clubmed.us, call 1-800-CLUB-MED, or talk to your travel advisor and book your ski escape getaway today.
Todd.
Mark.
Thanks for coming, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So for those of you folks that are listening, in the studio right now, we got Todd Lawson, who is the publisher or the publisher?
One of the publishers.
One of the publishers of Mountain Life magazine. And you were actually on the show 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah, I think so.
I actually didn't check to see which episode that was. But you and the Mountain Life guys came to the studio here, and we had a little chat about that. Since then, you have written a fantastic book called Inside the Belly of an Elephant. For those of you watching on YouTube, that's the book right there. I'll put it up on the screen. But this is an epic.
Thank you.
It is an absolute epic. When I heard you were writing this book, or when you first started putting it out, I was like, what is this all about?
Yeah.
And then I'll be honest, I didn't really look into it fully until, I don't know, recently. I'm like, I want to check out Todd's book. See what he's writing about.
Yeah.
And then I talked to our friend Brandy, and she said she got through like the first little bit of it, and I was like, oh man, it's heavy. It starts off really.
It is a bit heavy off the start. Yeah. People are like, I kind of recommend people to have a couple of tissues or whatever at hand if they
and I'll tell you this, I've read a lot of books in my life. I can never remember, maybe it's just the books that I choose to read, I can't ever remember crying reading a book.
Well,
and I had tears down my face, maybe because I know you and whatever.
Yeah.
But so we'll get to all of that soon. But why don't you, to start it off, give us a kind of a, you've probably given it a lot of times, what's the overview? What's the theme? What's the story? What's this book about?
Well, this book at its core is about freedom, about, not only the freedom of travel and adventure travel, motorcycle travel primarily, but just the freedom of your soul and, what someone needs to do, not need to do, but, when shit hits the fan in life, whether it's through grief or something that's happened to you physically or mentally or whatever, and just being able to tap into whatever exists deep inside your soul and freeing yourself to be able to live your life like you want to do and get over that major thing that happened to you. Whether it's, we all of us deal with trauma in our lives, in one way or another, whether it's if you lose a loved one or something like that. So the book, it really dives into that as this kind of central theme, but it's, primarily it's an adventure travel book. It's a motorcycle adventure travel book, although it takes place through about 80 countries in the world. Yeah,
it's wild. So, essentially you went to, so kind of there's three main parts to this book.
Yeah.
And I found that all three of them, I had a very different feeling while reading each third of the book, or each I guess act.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term. Like emotionally, and that first part of the book was like, wow, this is heavy. Like, what's going on? When are we going to get to this part?
Mm-hmm.
And then the second part was like joy and freedom. And then the third act, I felt like anxious and stressed about it because of the way was that kind of on purpose, that tone that you wanted to put into the
I guess kind of. I mean, the story arc and going deep within those three distinct parts that was kind of by design, but it's also just how it rolled out with the trips that I did and with my brother, and then subsequently with Christina. So it was like that, like I had never even ridden a motorcycle before I went to Africa, and my brother was like, "Hey man, we got to buy bikes and cruise around Africa." And I was like, "Oh, wait a minute here." So, but he convinced me, and then we did it. And, it was like, obviously bittersweet memories of it and what happened and stuff because of it. But if my brother didn't pass away, I wouldn't be here today living the life that I'm living now.
Right. Yeah. So to quickly summarize the book, you went to Africa to meet up with your brother, and you guys embarked on a epic motorcycle journey.
Yeah.
And near the end of the journey, basically right at the tail end, correct? Yeah. He passed away from a preventable malaria.
Yeah. Cerebral malaria. Yeah.
And you are really raw and open with that in the book about what happened, but also with your own emotions. And I thought it was extremely honest the way you wrote it. It's pretty, you have to be pretty vulnerable to do that. Was that tough?
That was probably the toughest part.
Yeah.
When I really sat down in earnest to write the book, I said that I wasn't going to write it unless I was brutally honest, because readers kind of deserve that. They don't deserve the sugar coated crap that you can kind of see right through if you're reading a book. And, if you really want to get into a book, or an author will really get you into the book if they're honest, especially if it's a nonfiction type of book like this, where where it's a personal experience situation. Right. So, yeah, that's not normally me. Like, I'm not really an open book, and, I'm kind of a bit more of a reserved guy unless you really get to know me or whatever. So, putting it on paper really helped, even with my grief process and with what I was going through, and just, it kind of took this weight off my shoulders of the guilt that I've been carrying around for years.
Like 20 something years?
Yeah. And just like, you'd go in waves, and, grief never really goes away. It comes and it goes, and you have good days and bad days. But yeah, when I just said, I said to myself, I'm kind of making a promise to myself and to the reader that I'm going to be like raw with this thing. So,
right. And a bit maybe to your brother too, to honor his memory
for sure.
And his story.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it starts. That starts off right away, which is, I think, a great idea. It pulls you in. Was that notes that you received, or was that something that you had in mind right away? Because is this your first book?
It's my first book. Yeah.
So for your first book, congratulations.
Thank you.
Because everyone I've talked to that has read it is like, yeah, it's fantastic. I went right through it. And like I said, I tried to separate whether it was because I knew you and I was interested in the story, or because it was just a good book. And I think it was the latter.
Yeah. So I knew, like, just from watching movies and things and reading books, I'm an avid reader and I love reading. I knew I wanted to catch the reader, like, by the throat right away. And have you ever seen that movie, Run, Lola, Run?
Yes, the German movie.
Yeah, and it's intense right off the start. There's just like this running chase, and it's just like the music's thumping and loud, and it's just like boop 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 boop. And I was kind of wanted it to be like that.
Oh,
just
really?
like,
so that was
boom.
like an inspiration for you.
Yeah, that movie was kind of a little bit inspiration too, and just from other books that you can kind of like, okay, I'm into this book. I'm not like, 30 pages in, you're kind of like, am I wasting my time with this? Should I complete it, or should I just give it, give it its credit? But yeah, so that was pretty by design as well, just to have it pretty suspenseful off the start.
Right on. Cause well done. And that's what I was thinking too. I'm like, I think this might be his first book. And I'm like, it's really well done.
Yeah.
Just in the structure for it. Did you have like mentors or anybody? Obviously you work in like a publishing industry.
Yeah.
So you might have people that you can lean on.
I definitely had really good help. And two of the main, mentors for me were Leslie Anthony. He was the first person that I talked to about the book. I said, "Hey man, I've got this book in me. I want to write it." So he really encouraged me to just puke it all out there on the first draft. Mm-hmm. He's like, "Don't worry about, the arc of the story and all that." He's like, "Get all your thoughts out and just write. Just write. after you can move things around and you can edit things. So he really helped me there in that first draft. He was awesome, not only a resource, but a sounding board as well. And then our Mountain Life editor, Feet Banks, he's a great editor because he cares, he cares what he's editing, and he's not the kind of editor that will just take a manuscript or a draft and be like, oh yeah, this looks good. We'll go with it. He really like shapes it and forms it, and he makes you go back to the drawing board and write. So Feet was a really good, he edited most of the book, that second chunk before I looked for a publisher.
Right.
And then when I found the publisher, Rocky Mountain Books, they assigned another editor to me. So I went through that.
So like again, a proper, like professional, this is what I do for a living. Like this guy did a great job, but now you got to send it to the polisher kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So he was really good at that. Like, definitely that's a good word to use, is polish. He polished it, or helped me polish it for sure. Right. Because it's so nice to have fresh eyes on your thing. Like, you know how many times I read the book or read a chapter and you just kind of like, your mind is going crazy after a while. And then he's like, oh, I didn't understand this part. Like, how does that tie into there? You're like, oh yeah, okay. Well, because you never want to lose the reader, right? Right. You want to keep them on that same path and books are long, there's 330 some pages in that. And sometimes, I've done this before. You're at page 200 and you're like, did I hear about that guy before?
What's this guy's name? Yeah. And you got to flip back. And,
So, so with a lot of characters and things like that, that's easy to lose a reader. So, that's he helped polish that up, and then the final manuscript that we submitted it didn't need much tweaking. Like Feet and I had it pretty dialed in, so that was good. I had to edit a little bit, but yeah.
Right. And does that save a bit on the cost? Is it like hourly, or is it like
no? By the time that's just kind of included in the yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so moving on kind of with the story arc, starts out heavy. You talk about that time with your brother. It starts right away, and then you kind of go into that first section of learning how to be an adventurer, right? Like your brother sounds like he was the ultimate adventurer. He was just that guy that's like, hey, let's go do something crazy. Yeah. What was his nickname again?
Knuckle.
Yeah.
Or Knuckler, the Knuckler, people called him Knuckle. Yeah. So
just because he's that dude that is going to go and try everything and doesn't always succeed.
Yeah, some people call him Evil Knuckle because he was like Evil Knievel. He was pretty daredevil-y. And
so you go on this trip, drive around Africa,
Southern Africa, yeah,
on these motorcycles. Yeah, he passes away, and then the next section of the book is, I'll condense it down, is through him and his friends, you meet Christina, your wife currently. Yeah. The two of you hit it off right away. And in honor of Sean, you guys decide to do a 1.5 year motorcycle trip. Yeah. Down through the Americas. Yeah. Down into, basically you wanted to hit almost every country, correct?
Yeah, that was the only goal we had, was to hit every country in Latin America. We didn't really have there was no other, we didn't want, like a lot of people that do that trip go from like Anchorage or wherever, Prudhoe Bay or whatever it is up there in Alaska, all the way to Tierra del Fuego. That's kind of like the tip to tip. But we didn't want to do that. So we just had this goal of every country in Latin America, which is 23 countries. And yeah, it was just to kind of keep that legacy alive. And not only that, but I was just like, I was pretty addicted to motorcycle travel at that point. It was like unbridled freedom, like you can't imagine. Mm-hmm. And, but I didn't want to go alone.
Yeah, you need a partner.
I travel a lot alone by myself, and it's amazing. I highly, highly recommend it. But then when I met Christina, and she just seemed like the perfect person to continue the journey and continue Sean's dream with. So she was pretty gung-ho, and we went for it.
Which is awesome. And then you guys completed that. And then the third part of the book is you wanting to go back to Africa with her a few years later, to help spread malaria awareness and give out mosquito nets. Yeah. And that second act of the book, it does feel like an adventure travel book. Like I was reading this and I'm like, man, I need to buy a plane ticket somewhere. Like,
yeah, nice.
Like right now. Because it was exactly that. It was like, oh, I want to go traveling, man. Like this, I was thinking about all places that I've been and
Yeah.
and the people that I've met, and I remembered things that I hadn't thought of a while
Cool.
because they were similar to kind of some of the interactions that you had within the book, which was really cool. And how did you decide on which kind of stories you wanted to tell? So basically, you almost like individual chapter, or like you created these little vignettes of these moments in time, these stories, these people that you met. I'm sure there were dozens and dozens more. How were you able to choose those specific moments as the ones you wanted to put into the book and those experiences?
Yeah, because you could write sometimes, you could get caught up in writing about all the anecdotes and all the people and which, in that first draft I kind of did. I was like, okay, one thing that helped me immensely was the volume of journals, the stacks of journals that my brother kept, and then the journaling that we did along the trip. Like, we were like super religious about it. Every single day we journaled, no matter what. So going back to those really helped us. I was a photographer at the time, so going back through all those photos and images and even videos for dialogue and all that sort of stuff helped. So when if it wasn't important, if it didn't advance the story, it got cut.
It got cut. Yeah, if it was just a cool story that you enjoyed, but it didn't serve.
Yeah, it didn't.
You didn't serve the book.
Yeah, they got cut. So, the ones that made it into the book were the ones that were pretty meaningful, and either like characters that just added so much color to the book, or stuff that helped with the human interaction between Christina and I and the people that you meet when you travel, because from travel, it just like, it's so incredible how you meet people that when you leave to the airport and get on that plane, you have no idea what's going to happen to you in the, down the line. There's like so many serendipitous moments that happen, good and bad. And so linking all those things together kind of strategically is what helped the book, help with the pace of the book,
Yeah, right. And I noticed that a lot of the ones that you did include were ones that would have left a mark on you, where it would have helped you develop as a person, become more aware of the world, like, like a family with domestic abuse and alcoholism, and then some random dudes on a hunting trip that just randomly showed up. One of the things I thought was funny was that every time it seemed like you were like, oh, we're screwed, someone just pops out of the woods and is there to help you.
Yeah, we call them road angels, and they're just like, it's amazing how that just happens. You throw yourself out there, because back in that time, this was 2004, and even when my brother went in 99, there was, we had no cell phone, we had no GPS, we had no iPhones or anything like that, or so you really have to just kind of open yourself up to what might happen. And when shit happens, you got to deal with it, and people are always there to help. Like, it always is this the case. And it was quite uplifting to know that the human soul really exists almost to help people, and to just, they're always there. They're always like, and
you strip away politics, you strip away everything, but when it's down to like the core base of what a human is, they're there to help, right?
Yeah. And we experienced that a lot. Like, I mean, we didn't have, as you read in the book, we didn't have too many instances of like any violence or, things getting stolen or getting robbed at gunpoint, or this stuff that you do worry about when you go. Like, especially my folks and my mom, she was like, what's going to happen? And, but if you start throwing up all those what ifs, you won't go. If you just got to ignore the what ifs and turn them into the good side of the what ifs. Like, hey, what if we do meet some rad people? And what if we do have this amazing time? And
exactly. Like, I actually wrote like a bunch of notes about that. It's like you were on this road from hell that you chose to put in the book that was just a nightmare, and these hunters just showed up when your bike broke down, and you went back and partied with them and hung out, and they fixed everything.
Eating rabbit stew and doing the polka.
There was another instance when you were fixing a wheel hub in the middle of Africa, and this this team laying a fiber optic cable just kind of showed up and helped you out.
Yeah.
But the one that really kind of blew me away was the nurses.
Oh yeah.
When Christina, so in the book, there's a moment in time in Africa when Christina gets really quite sick, in the middle of nowhere, like way out in the middle of nowhere, and you happen to be in like a hotel or hostel or camp, with a bunch of nurses who also just went through the same thing that she has.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And had antibiotics left over for that thing. Like, I'm reading this going, no way.
I know. It was just unbelievable how that was the most scared I was on the entire trip, because I'm like, oh my God, she's got this crazy fever. We've just been in malaria zone like the whole time or whatever.
And you have this prior trauma of
this.
My brother passed away from this. So, and that part of the book, I think you're able to convey your worry in it as well, because that must have been
and you know all the bad things start popping into your head, like what if
did it happen again kind of thing.
Yeah. So I was like, luckily we had that test kit and it was negative, but I still was like, do I trust this kid or not? And then all of a sudden these 3 nurse angels pop out of the woodwork and just like, hey, we had strep throat and that's the exact same symptoms and we've got antibiotics and here you go, should be all right. Like, so yeah, amazing.
Pretty wild, eh?
Yeah.
Like traveling. That's some of the things that I was like, I need to go traveling somewhere, not just like a ski trip for the podcast or something where you're traveling and you're meeting people and you get everything, but just like, I'm going to go spend 3 weeks and just cruise around and figure it out.
Yeah. And I think travel's changed. Obviously we have technology now and Airbnb and places and things. So I think, I always, when we left, we didn't bring a guidebook on purpose because, back in the backpacker days, everyone had a Lonely Planet and everyone would go to the same places that were recommended in the Lonely Planet. So you just have the cycle of like meeting the same backpackers and the same people and doing the same shit. And my brother was a huge proponent of just like throwing that thing away and just going and just not going to all those places, but just going to stay with locals or just really like asking people, hey, can I sleep in your yard tonight or whatever? And
right.
Like, yeah, no problem. We got an extra bed for you or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of just like, you got to really, especially today when everything is so set up for us, it's hard to get away from that stuff, But if you kind of seek it out and if you really want to do some meaningful travel, book the ticket, but book nothing else. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you said, it's harder and harder now, because when I was thinking back when I was traveling too, even in the early like 2011 or something like that, still wasn't quite as what it is now, where you would get the Lonely Planet or just kind of figure it out. I remember sitting in the airport in Tokyo, the main subway station in Tokyo, just flew, got all my bags. I'm sitting there. I have no idea what's going on. And I had to just sit on all my gear for probably half an hour, just collecting myself. What's my next step? And that's exciting, right? Yeah. Like it's so funny when you're in the middle of your travels. Sometimes it's a lot. Like it really tests you. And the more time that separates you from those moments, the better and fonder those memories become. For
sure.
Because there's those moments where you're like, this is one of the worst days I've ever had in my life. But you don't think about that. You're like, oh, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I know. I can remember this one time in Uganda, we were in Kampala, and Kampala is just like this crazy African city, and there's so much traffic and things going on. And we had all these logistics to do and things to get fixed and things to find and visas to do. And, this is like, before Google Maps, you're trying to find the Kenyan visa in downtown Kampala, and it's just like, and so Christina kind of broke down. She's just like, I'm done. I got to get out of here. And, she kind of almost pulled the pin, but, but the very next day or a couple of days after that, we headed out and we found solace in nature along the Nile River. And that was just like you can kind of just feel the city wash off of you in that river. And it was pretty amazing. But man, if we had to go with another couple, 3 more days in that city, it was like, yeah, dicey.
Overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the cover here. I think that's probably one of the best book covers I've ever seen.
Thanks.
I found myself always looking back on it. For a while there, I thought it was you.
Yeah.
And then I went, oh wait, no, that's actually his brother.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a perfect photo for this book. And you said you have this I'll show everybody again. It's basically, for those that can't see it, it's his brother backlit with a bunch of climbing gear on, looking up, I guess, at like a climbing wall or something, with something in his hand, and it looks...
He's got a little mini camera in his hand.
It's
like
a camera.
Little mini cameras, yeah.
And I kept looking back at it, and it's just... It just keeps drawing my eye. And I was going to ask you about that. And then in the book, it tells you say that you actually have this photo as like a sticker attached to...
Yeah, that we had it taped onto
your
the front of
bikes.
our bike, yeah.
So basically, the whole arc of this book is just basically living and honoring your brother's memory by living the way that he would. And inside the belly of an elephant refers to this wooden elephant that you purchased, which you held his ashes in. And throughout the book, in all of these moments that you list, you take them as an opportunity to spread his ashes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still have some of them?
Yeah, getting low though. It was Sean's 25th anniversary of his passing.
Just in July, correct?
Yeah, July 19th. So we went to Rossland, his old stomping grounds. And just like we did after he passed away, we launched his ashes from the top of this mountain called Kootenai, Columbia, KC, out of a spud gun.
Hit a potato gun.
yeah.
That's good. I've got that written down.
And my daughter, Sienna, got to hit the trigger, and she's named after Sean. So it was a pretty cool moment for her. There was this like fireball that flew out of the thing, and it was just like made this big thwack, and then instantly it was pretty windy up there. The ashes flew out, and they all flew right back into us.
Kind of like the Big Lebowski.
Yeah, totally.
Where he throws the coffee can in the air and hits him in the face. So I actually have this note down. I'm like, July 19th was his birthday. And
no,
pardon me.
That's when he passed away.
He
Yeah,
passed.
Yeah,
and in one of the chapters, you talk about a solo mission to connect with Sean, and I just wanted to kind of ask, how is that how are you with that now on that day? Obviously, you celebrated with his friends and your family, but when you do those solo missions, how do you feel like you connect with them? How does that help you, and how does that serve you?
Yeah, well, I actually physically just speak to him and talk to him out loud. Just, let him know that everything's okay. Hope he's doing okay. And I usually try to go somewhere where there's no people, no power lines, no roads, put a pack and hike in the Alpine, or just go somewhere. Sometimes, it doesn't always happen. And this year I took my good buddy, Jimmy Martinello, who is the reason I'm kind of here. And he was the one that introduced me and Christina together. And he was traveling he's in the book, he was traveling with Sean together. So It was nice to share that with him. And I think it's just a good chance for me to just, let him know that he's not forgotten. And, life is good.
I love that. Spend some time with him.
Yeah, and just talk to him out loud and just say, hey man, how's it going up there, or wherever you're at, or I wonder what you're doing, or what's going on. And
do you find that those moments, he still kind of helps you guide you in direction? So maybe it's like, hey man, everything's going good. Maybe it's not. Maybe you have some things going on in your life, or you've got a crossroads, and you're like, does he help you guide?
Well, I think just that act of going somewhere solo and into nature, because he was such that guy. Even just that is enough to anytime we spend time in nature, it fulfills your soul, right? So it kind of fills you up and fills up the cup. So, there's definitely been times where I haven't even wanted to go for whatever reason. And then you go and, you know, I remember this one time I just got hammered on with rain. I was hiking. I was alone. It was lightning. I was like, holy fuck, what do I do? And blah, blah, blah. And just kind of hunkered down into this boulder for a while. And you know, the skies parted and there was this like insane rainbow and all that shit. And, you know, every single time I do that, almost every single time I've had an encounter with wildlife. Like I remember one time I went hiking on not the West Coast Trail, but the other
Juan de Fuca Trail?
Yeah, Juan de Fuca. And I was on this beach. There was this sick waterfall falling down by the beach. And there's this otter that came and he was just like checking me out and hanging out and looking at me, and he would swim away and he'd come back, and he spent like an hour just like right there in the water, not far away. And that was pretty, like, I was like, wow, okay, you're an otter now, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes when I wrote in the book there, this, like, I was going through the really tough time just after he passed away. And I was like, give me a sign. Like, I just want to know you're here, or if you're here or around me or whatever. And I just saw these like two birds, and he was just like chasing another bird, like, you know, and just like swooping around. So I always had that in me, and, you know, to hold on to.
I believe in that stuff fully.
Yeah.
You know, the legend of the raven, you know, embodying the spirit of the lost, of your loved ones lost. I 100% believe in that one. Another thing within the book too, and I hope for those of you listening, I'm not giving a lot away. Like, we know what happens. You can see it on the back, but it's just reading about the stories that makes the book good. But there's a moment in the book right afterwards, another one that I went, come on, like these serendipitous moments. You're on the airplane.
Oh yeah, someone just asked me about that the
and
other day.
you met these two dudes named Sean and Lawson.
Yeah.
On your flight home from Africa, like right after this,
Spelled the same way, everything.
right after this event happened.
Yeah.
You go, like, I'm leaving Africa now. This is the worst. And I meet these two guys on the airplane with named Sean and Lawson.
Yeah.
Like, I got goosebumps reading that. I'm like, and it's like, is he taking like literal,
taking the piss? Yeah.
Well, like, is he taking
Create too much creative license?
yeah.
And you know, that part almost didn't make it in the book because that was in my African journals, right? And I couldn't find it for a while, and I didn't remember that even,
Right.
you know. So that was like the value of keeping those journals or writing a journal is just like insane. And
so you didn't remember that, but you came across it in your books. And
yeah.
then what was
like,
your reaction?
Oh my God. I was like, holy shit, you know, because it was like,
Right.
that was like 20 years ago or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But when had 20 plus years had spanned, and you forget things. And going through this, I was like, holy shit, I remember that now. I remember what they look like, those kids and those guys.
Yeah.
Like, they're young guys, you know?
Right.
And I remember just like we were in the same seats and kind of near the back of the plane, and I had the elephant there, and they were like, you know, I was like, oh, here's my brother Sean. He's inside here. And they're like, what are you talking about? It's like, is he a genie or what? You know? And then, you know, once they're like, oh my God, So that was like that was the sign. That was like, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, cause you know, you're in like this puddle of grief I was like, It was like a week, and I had all these other shit. Like I had to like sell the bikes and, you know, just had all the shit, and had good friends helping me out there. And I didn't even sell the bikes by the time I had landed, but he kind of helped me sell the bikes and
Right.
sent the money afterwards. But yeah, so, but I just wanted to go back to this photo.
Yeah.
So the sticker that we had made was one of Sean's favorite sayings or quotes that he had written. He had this on his,
You've got it written in the inside cover, I think.
in his stuff. Well, no, not this, but on the bottom, this says, "Wake up early, stay up late." That was his kind of life motto. But on the bottom, he had this saying called, or we put this on the photo, but it said, "We take these risks not to escape life, but to prevent life from escaping us." And that was like him, right? So it's like, yeah, that was life to him, was about, you know, not really taking risks because that's where life comes from. You know, you got to take the risk, and you got to buy the ticket, and you got to just do it and go for it, you know?
Yeah. That's I love it. And it's kind of shaped your journey thus far as having him kind of little guardian angel on your shoulder. And it happened right away. Like on the airplane,
Yeah.
there's some things that just are coincidence, but they can't be coincidences.
Oh my God.
You know? And
yeah,
then all of those things along your journeys where it was like, oh, we're screwed. Oh no, we're not. Sean's here to take care of us.
Yeah.
So that's I love that part because it adds some magic to the book too, right? It adds a little bit of, magic. It adds a little fun, a little magic, and makes you think like, what if? Like, yeah, he's there.
Yeah, and it was really cool to see the connection that Christina had with Sean, because she never met him obviously, but she had this one instance where she was driving in she was on her bike and this raven, she was coming back from Squamish. It was by the canyon there, and this raven was like flew right in front of her and came down and dipped like that, and she had to pull over because she was like, because so he's there.
I love it. I love it. So like back to kind of the writing of the book, with in certain parts, you put one part in there, and it's a quote where it says, "I could be myself, escaping judgment." And I was thinking about a book like this, where you have to lay, like I alluded to it earlier, we have to like kind of lay your heart on the line. Did you ever consider, because you're talking about, your brother's passing, right? You didn't really allude to, whether people had any blame towards you or not. I know you held a lot of guilt personally. And that was a big thing, whether anybody else did or not. That was probably, your own worst enemy, that sort of thing. And you wrote a quote, it said, escaping judgment. And I wanted to know how you felt about, people reading this book and how it would be either reviewed or viewed or judged, and how you personally thought about that during this writing process.
Well, I didn't. The funny thing is I didn't think about that. And when the book came out, and then I had all these people coming to me with all these like amazing things, like the phone was just going off the hook and people texted me and calling me. I was just like, holy shit. In all the writing and all that stuff, you kind of get caught away in just like tunnel vision in the book. I got to get this finished and do this. And, the book's coming and the launch, and you get all nervous about that. And then when it's out there, you're like, holy shit. Okay. Well, this book is like out in the world now.
Yeah.
How is it going to, I didn't think about that before, but now I have been. And it's pretty cool to hear how the book has been affecting people in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Some it's like they lost their dad, and they have really connected with that and with the grief process and guilt and shit like that. And some are like motorcycle travelers and like, yeah, man, I've been to some of the same places that you guys were at, and I know what you're talking about and all that stuff. And some people are just like, mountain sport junkies like us, and climbers and bikers and all that, and just like adventure travel. But yeah, it's been really interesting to see and to read all the reviews and to just really hear stories about how people have either read and consumed the book and what it's kind of done to them and how it's, affected them. Like you, for example, you're like, hey, I'm gonna just like buy a ticket and go, right?
Yeah, I was like, this is great. Like, I want to get out of here. And has anything surprised you? Because I'm sure there's like a huge array of different how people perceive it. Like they say with artists, is you write a song and you put it out in the world, it's not your song anymore. Yeah. Right? Every single person that listens to that song interprets it a different way. And I'm sure everybody that reads this book is going to take it and interpret it to suit how it needs to suit them at that moment in time.
Yeah.
Has anything kind of really surprised you with how people have received it or what they've gained from it?
Well, I think it's mostly like, because I knew that a lot of my, obviously friends and family are going to buy the book just because it's, I wrote a book. But then the people, like, you never know who or how or why someone's going to buy the book.
Right.
And there's been people like you, like, oh my God, the cover just drew me in. Like one guy wrote to me, he was on vacation in Whistler. He saw the book. He's like, I don't know why. I'm not even a reader really. I picked up this book. My wife was in the bookstore. I went to the bookstore with her, picked up this book, And he was like, I was blown away. I didn't know what to expect. He was like, oh my God. It's like, because even the name,
Right.
like the name's pretty vague and you don't know what, like, you know, what it's all about.
Yeah.
And, you know,
They
so.
judged the book by its cover.
Yeah.
And they were
Good way.
they were rewarded. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the surprise has been the sheer diversity of number of ways that it's affected people and how they've interpreted it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then that's a sign of a good piece of art.
Yeah.
That's a sign of, I think, a good output, right? Like if you can get that varied response, I think that you've done a pretty good job.
Totally. Yeah.
So for those of you who haven't read it, you can go to whatever podcast app you're on now. There'll be a link for you to go buy the book if you want. There's some more things I want to talk to you about because you got lots going on in your life.
Yeah.
Right. So we talked about, we mentioned that you're one of the publishers of Mountain Life magazine. Which do you think you'd be doing if it wasn't for Sean?
Probably not, because I don't know if I'd be in Whistler. I almost went to, when I studied journalism and photography, which is what helped me write this book, you know, learning about all the nuances and rules of writing. And then I got hired in Whistler as a photographer on the mountain. And then I met Jimmy, and Jimmy introduced me to Christina, and then also with, you know, the Mountain Life guys of John Burak, who's my co-publisher, and Glenn, and I met those guys through Jimmy and all that stuff. So I could have been somewhere totally different. Right. But you know how life is just like all about choices and decisions, and I made the right one, you know.
He's leading you down the path.
Yeah, totally.
So you do that. And we've talked about, in the book, you cover your 3 major journeys that you've done up to that point. Well, you have a 4th. You just went on another epic mission with your wife, partner, Christina, who was on the other ones, but also your daughter. Yeah. Which was really, really cool. So that's kind of like the next stage. That's almost like the next book, I guess.
I know.
So how was that? So the last journey you went on was what, 2008? Yeah. Yeah. So that was the last African journey. That's the final kind of act in the book. Yeah. Fast forward, you now have a daughter, and last year, I guess a year and a half ago, you guys set out from Ireland to India. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And so, you know, you're able to keep that spirit of motorcycle adventure alive, but now you got a kid. How did that work? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we had, you know, like, because of how motorcycle travel has changed our lives and enriched our lives, and you know, we really wanted to introduce our daughter to that. Mm-hmm. We had to wait until the time was right, because if you take a kid when they're 3 years old, they're not, you know, on an epic year-long trip, they're not going to remember much of it, right? Right. And even leading up to that, as a kid, legally, you can't ride a motorcycle unless you can touch the pegs on the back. So we saw this picture of a sidecar one day, and we're like, oh, ding, ding, you know, the light bulb came on. And the picture had like actually a surfboard rack in the front, and we're paddlers. And so I was like, oh my God, we could like put the boards on there and go travel with our kid. And so the light bulb went off, and when that happens to me, it takes hold, and I just kind of go, and I figure it out, right?
Yeah, this is happening.
Me and Christina, we figured it out. We're kind of like that. So we're like, okay, let's pick the time. So it was like, you know, I had work going. I still was working and doing my job on the trip. So I had to kind of figure all that out with my business partners and stuff. And they were super awesome and receptive to it, which really helped. And then, so we're like, okay, Sienna, you're 10, you're going to be 10. You're still a kid, but you can help out with things. You're going to remember everything. We're not, you know, your dad, mom are still everything to you. It's not, you're a teenager yet, and you're not just about your friends. Right. Right. So we're like, okay, well, let's, you know, we picked the date and we went for it. We started saving up and planning, and this one was a little bit more logistically intense, right? Because we shipped bikes there and more visas and things. And like
I would
that.
assume with like a sidecar, random dirt roads aren't quite as easy as they would have been on an individual bike.
Yeah, it's just a different way of riding.
Right.
It's, your
Different route choices as well.
Yeah, and so like, with a sidecar, you're steering it. You're not leaning like you would with a traditional bike. So that's why we chose to also bring another motorcycle, a Royal Enfield Himalayan, so we could switch off and have both of the feelings.
But the poor kid had to sit in the sidecar the entire time.
Yeah, but
for a year, just chilling in the side seat.
It was not poor kid. She was loving it. She had her little thing there, and she had her stuffy called Peanut, and she loved that. And she had like a blanket in there, and we rigged up these little mesh kind of pockets so she could shove snacks and things in there. And she had that thing pretty like dialed in, and towards like 3-4 months in, she's a major animal lover. So, and there, like when we got to the Balkans in like, Bosnia and things like that, there's like cats and stray dogs everywhere. So she would buy her own dog food and cat food and have it in the sidecar with her. And if we stopped to like, gas up, or she would give the dogs and cats treats and stuff. So that was pretty cool to see that unfold. And, it was just nice to, like I tell people, she learned the most when we weren't trying to teach her anything.
Right.
Their kids are a sponge then, and just the world's passing by in a motorcycle.
See something, and if they don't get it, they'll ask you about it. Right?
Yeah, totally.
Was that the most difficult journey that you've done? Like tough because you've had that extra element?
Yeah, it was probably, because you're adding an extra element, and
you're responsible for this person as well. Whereas before, you and Christina were, responsible to each other, but not for each other.
Yeah, kind of. So yeah, for sure. It was another level. We're definitely like more cautious and about going like super remote or off the beaten path. I think, there was that, it was like Europe, Western Europe, and it was like a summer Euro vacation, it was pretty easy, but it was a nice way to break in to the stuff that was coming, that was a little bit more full on, and in the Balkans and Turkey and Nepal and India and all in Morocco too. Like it was pretty awesome how it just organically unfolded. We didn't have a major route destination. The first part of the trip was like visiting friends, which is awesome, all over the place in Europe and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Are you going to do, I know you just did a slideshow and did some presentations. Do you think you might turn that into like a book or a little something?
Well, when I wrote this book and finished it, I was like, there's no way I'm writing another book. It's hard. But
so a little bit of time passes, it's out in the world, people love it, then you start thinking about stuff. You're like, well, maybe I could start another one.
We did think I've got the chapter breakdown. We've got the chapter breakdown already done, but we'll see. Got other shit going on, so
turn it into a podcast where you can write all the stories out, and then the three of you can talk about your individual experiences.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That's cool. All right, so that is something that maybe you can look into, but you can go to the Instagram accounts,
Freedom.life, yeah.
Freedom.life, and that kind of covers that whole journey, which is really cool. I was looking at it the other day, and I was like, man, that's so awesome. That kid's so lucky.
Yeah.
So another thing that you have as well, I'm sure based or inspired by all of these travels, is you're currently developing a new like camping shelter or travel shelter.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah, so it's a rugged inflatable shelter, and it's a fully integrated system. So the tent and the mattress are essentially one, and it was born from all the time and hassle that it gets wasted trying to set up a tent and blow up mattresses with my mouth. It was like getting to me to the point where I was just like, there's got to be a better way, man. I'm so sick of this. Because, when you're traveling, or especially on your bike, and you're riding for like 6, 7, 8 hours a day, and you get to camp, the last thing you want to do is like set up camp and set up your tent. It's like, oh my God, it's like a chore, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea wouldn't go away. Every time I went camping, we started timing it, and it was between even knowing your stuff, it was between like 22 and 28 minutes to fully set up your tent, blow up your thermarest, get your sleeping bags out, all that stuff. So I was like, my mind, it wasn't letting go. I kind of got to the drawing board. This was during COVID. Mm-hmm. I ordered some material that I could like iron together and create like a inflatable rib cage, I called it.
Right.
And, have the mattress kind of included in the whole system. It was like super rudimentary, but you got to start.
Prototype.
The prototype is
Yeah.
the first one was like cardboard and scissors and paper and going at it with the design or the shape. Right. So then I was like, oh, maybe I got something here. Like I think it's something. So whatever, I might as well just go for it. And if it doesn't turn into anything, then whatever. But now I'm almost 5 years in now. From that very first like paper cutout, I'm almost 5 years in, and I'm getting very close. So now you can basically inflate the tent with an awesome little battery powered pump in 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you rock up to a campsite and it's pouring rain, you don't have to deal with that scenario. You can just like plug the pump in 2 minutes and then you're inside and you're good to go.
Right.
Yeah. So it's been a fun ride. It's definitely the next adventure right now.
Is it packed down to like the same size as a tent or a little smaller?
No, I'm not yet.
When it's deflated, I mean, yeah.
Not yet. This one's mainly for car camping, road trips, boat camping, overlanding, that kind of thing. Right.
Yeah.
So
it's a little bigger.
Yeah, it's a little bigger for sure. I'm solving two problems, which is the hassle and time it takes to set up and take down a tent, and comfort, because you know how it is sleeping on a single mattress with a mummy bag,
especially when you're tall too. Like,
yeah,
like my feet, I'd never fit completely on one of those bags.
So it was like, I love camping and adventuring. But it's important to get a good night's sleep, no matter what, because you can wake up and you're just ruined because you got the shitty sleep and you slipped off your mattress and you just like were snoring all night.
Ants biting through the bottom of your tent.
Ants eating your tent.
That's a section of the book that I thought was hilarious.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
What is happening with these like army ants?
Yeah.
I saw an Instagram post of some dude.
I saw that too the other day.
Like filming it happen. He just like, I can't do anything about it.
That guy was pretty hardcore. He was like, this big tarantula comes at the end. You're like, oh my god.
These leafcutter ants were literally cutting his tent into pieces and walking away with it.
Yeah. So that happened to us. So that won't happen with my tent because it's a rugged thing.
Well,
like,
is that one of the inspirations? Or was like, I got to make sure this never happens because you were in. I think it was in the third part of the book.
No, it was in Mexico.
It was in Mexico, and you're like, what is this? I'm getting bit, and these ants had cut through the tent nylon.
It was insane.
And were biting you.
Yeah. So yeah, just it's been a fun journey. It's been like it's been like the university of product design and figuring out all those steps. And I've had a lot of help along the way for sure. And just like every day you learn something new and you kind of beat your head against the wall and then you got to push forward and figure it out. You got to just find a way to
figure it out. And you had no experience in any of this before.
Just had the idea, and I knew it would work. I knew it was a problem that needed to be solving. Not everyone. It's not going to be for everyone. Right. They're going to be like, whatever. I'm just going to take my normal tent. That's totally fine.
Right.
But ultimately, I want to make one. The next version I probably will make will be a smaller 1 or 2 person version that will fit perfectly inside a motorcycle pannier or saddlebag. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. And do you have like ideas when these might be released? We're still kind of in developmental stage.
But I'm getting really close. My Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah. Talk about that. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
Where can they find it?
Slated right now, if there's no delays, September 24th.
Oh, no way. So about a month from now.
Yeah, so you can buy a discounted version of the Air Nest. It's called the Air Nest.
Air Nest.
Rugged inflatable rugged inflatable shelter. Yeah.
Excellent. I'll put a link to that on there as well because this will be out before then.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So people can get the book and
awesome.
Go check out the Air Nest. I like the idea, man. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Will it be what's kind of cost?
Cost will be off the start. It'll be between $1,200 and $1,500.
Yeah,
and that includes super wide, roomy mattress, the tent, the pack, and the battery chart. The battery powered pump is also an air bank, so you can charge your phone, you can charge your headlamp.
Cool.
Yeah.
You thought of everything. Yeah, but it looks pretty cool. Like looking at the posts that you've been putting up, I'm like, that thing's neat, man. I gotta ask him about that too.
Yeah, it's coming along. It's been the factory that I'm working with right now is amazing. Those guys are like so smart and so communicative and so open to helping you solve the problem. They never say like, no, we can't do that. They'll be like, okay, well, we'll try to figure out how to do it. Right. Which is awesome. Yeah.
I guess that's just another example of if you don't know how to do something and you want to do it, just start.
Yeah, because without those guys, like without, the factories in China, they're the only people that have this inflatable technology that they can produce at scale. It's not like I'm making coffee tables where you
Right.
can do it yourself every day and you can kind of figure it out. This is like kind of, and the shape of it and the design is kind of complex.
Mhm.
I'm trying to make a complex thing very, very simple.
Simple,
Yeah,
right.
like, yeah.
And will it have like spots to like nail down? Because I'm like, that
Yep.
thing looks like it would just blow away in a windstorm.
Yeah. No, it's actually been pretty cool. Like we've had it in windy situations where you just open the doors completely
Oh,
and the wind just whips right through. It's awesome.
because you've seen videos and I'm pretty sure you've seen in person like a tent get picked up and get tossed.
Oh yeah, people sending me that like
Yeah.
all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Like, hey, check this out. Yeah. So yeah, no, there's like 18 spots you can peg it down, and the vestibule zips right onto the front. So when it starts raining, you don't have to scramble to like in the rain to put your fly on that
Right.
we've all done and tripped and fell on our faces. You just zip it onto the front, boom, peg it down, and you're good to go.
I love it.
Yeah.
So what's starting to
What's brewing already?
yeah, what's in the back of your mind? What's germinating back there as kind
Well,
of your next adventure?
I got to keep myself in check because I'm like an ideas guy, right? So yeah, the ideas are there, but it's all like I've got a lot of ideas related to the camping space. So there's going to be more innovation. Like the name of the company is Rise Outdoor Innovation. So I want to just keep innovating how I can if it solves a problem in that space, like I've got a bunch of other stuff coming down the pipe. So if and when this goes off, then it'll kind of enable me, I'll have way more confidence moving forward that, okay, people are into this. The concept has been proven.
right.
People are stoked. And, that it's going to be like the book though. Like once it's out there, you're like, oh, and I think people are a little bit more unforgiving with product. Like
Right.
I'm kind of waiting for that. There's going to be like some backlash on the price and the whatever, and
Right.
shit's going to happen.
Not for those
but
people, right?
yeah. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's exciting, man.
yeah.
Yeah, lots going on. Well, thanks for coming on the show. Like I said, I was really excited to read the book, and I crushed it quickly. Thanks for bringing it over.
Yeah. Thank you.
Fantastic. Nice work, man. For everybody listening, go check it out if you like a really cool adventure, real true story adventure book that'll inspire you to go traveling. It'll inspire you to talk to people. It'll hit you in the feels. Like,
Yeah.
It covers a lot of bases, man. Like it's
a lot of emotions. Yeah.
it's
It's a roller coaster.
really, really well done. Congratulations to you. Where can people go find out information about you, about the book, about the tent?
Yeah.
project?
Well, okay. So Rise Outdoors, the tent. You can go to Mountain Life Media and check out all the mountain life stuff. Freedom.life is my kind of like my family one, and our family travels and stuff like that. I'm a LinkedIn guy too, so you can find me there, Todd Lawson. But yeah.
Fantastic. And there's actually one more note on here that I'd like to
Fire away.
a couple things actually. You had mentioned earlier about Google Maps and like paper maps and all that kind of stuff. And there's a section in this book where you had this great map that you ended up losing, and you ran into this guy who had the exact same map. I was like, there's another one of those moments. Do you still have that map?
Yep.
Is it like framed? Is it?
It's right now. It's not framed, but it's on like a cardboard thing that we had at one of our slideshows way back when. It's got the red squiggly line down it. Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. I'm like, of course they got.
Yeah, I know.
And another one. I know we're kind of wrapping up, but I want to dive back in just for a minute.
Yeah, go for it.
You in the book with a lot of the stories that you've chosen to put in here, a lot of them involve a lot of motherly figures, and you write about your mom in the book as well. Was that something that you've thought about, or is it something that just has happened? Because I know you were there with your brother, and you felt a lot of guilt. I know you wrote later in the book when you said that you and Christina wanted to go back to Africa. Your mom was like, "No, what the hell?" It really hurt her. And that was something you brought up a lot. Is your mom, and within the book, I noticed a lot of those little stories of people that you've met. A lot of them involved like motherly figures, and I just wanted to know, is that something maybe that just happened, or is it something that you've thought about or realized within the book?
Well, you're the first person to bring it up. So thank you. I never even realized that until you said that now. But now that you say that, it is kind of a common thread, because there's Claudette, the woman from Belize who's got 10 kids and we're still friends with. We talked to her like literally 2 days ago. And then, there was a lot of moms throughout the book, and, like the mom of the doctor who treated Sean, my parents stayed with her and all that stuff. So it was kind of unintentional, but I'm glad it was woven throughout, that you had, you picked up on it. So it's cool.
And I noticed that, and I'm like, you have a very strong connection with your mom. You write about it from the very beginning, and it's kind of a theme throughout, about, your relationship with her, and it's, the regular struggles of a mom-son relationship, especially with all that's going on. And I wonder if maybe subconsciously that relationship and how it relates to the story was maybe just kind of an influence to some of the stories that you put in and decided to share.
Yeah, it was probably just in there subconsciously, and let it kind of flow. But, I dedicate this book to the 3 most amazing women in my life, which are Christina, my daughter, and my mom. And the book is now going to a second print, because for whatever reason that was erroneously left out, like the dedication page.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. So that's why it's not in there, but it's going to be in the next version. So anyways, I said to my mom, this book is really for you. And that's, that's true. So yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Thanks for coming.
Hey, thank you, buddy.
It's great to see you
Appreciate
again.
it.
And everybody, make sure you go check it out. It's a great read. Episode 2 of LPP Reads. And if you liked this episode and you're inspired to go read it, do it. It's a fun one.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Likewise.
You've been listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers. This has been a Redmark Media production.